This one's a tough one, guys. Hits close to home, you know? We're going back to July 2021. Remember that story, the one at the Falls apartment complex over in Duluth?
Yeah, I remember that one. It was all over the news. Really shook people up, especially in Gwinnett.
Right. It was like, whoa, this could happen anywhere, even in your own apartment complex parking lot, which is exactly what happened to this young couple. Middle of the night, 2 a.m. They're just in their car.
And they get ambushed, basically.
Yeah, ambushed is the right word. This WSB TV article, it lays out the whole thing, and it's chilling, man.
What really gets me is that it was so brazen. Like, they weren't even trying to be subtle about it. 4 of them, according to the report.
4 against 2. And it wasn't just a robbery. The article says they were threatened with firearms. Listen to this, quote, the assailants threatened to blow her brains out if she resisted.
It's terrifying. Just awful.
Yeah.
And you said it wasn't just a robbery. They were targeted, this couple specifically.
Yeah, and that's where this thing takes an even darker turn. The young woman, she's sexually assaulted while they're holding a gun on her boyfriend, making him watch the whole thing.
It's just evil.
Yeah.
The level of cruelty is just unimaginable.
It makes you question everything, you know? Like, how can people be capable of this? But you know what? At least the Gwinnett County Police, they didn't let this one go. They were on it.
Yeah, from what I remember reading, they really pulled out all the stops to catch these guys. It was a whole thing.
It was. And we're going to break down exactly how they did it, all the twists and turns of the investigation right after this.
You know, when you think about it, it's kind of amazing how they cracked this case. The article talks about how it seemed like a dead end at first.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part. It wasn't looking good.
Right. But then they caught a break, you know, with all those little details, the ones you don't think matter but end up being super important.
It's like that saying, right? The devil's in the details.
Exactly. And in this case, those details, they were the key. Like the Ring camera footage, for example.
Oh, that's right. They had that. Everywhere you go these days, there's a camera. And half the time you don't even realize it's there.
Totally. But that footage, it put the suspects near the scene right before it happened, helped the police establish a timeline and all.
Yeah, so they had their faces on camera.
Well, not exactly their faces, but enough to get a general description. And it put them in the right place at the right time, which is huge.
Huge. Okay, so we've got the security footage. What else?
The DNA evidence was a slam dunk. They were able to match DNA from the rape kit directly to Elijah Neal Kearney. Put him right there at the scene.
DNA, you can't argue with that. And fingerprints too, right? Didn't the article mention something about fingerprints?
You've got a good memory. They found fingerprints in one of the vehicles that matched Deshaun Andretti Harris.
Yeah.
Another solid link to the crime.
Okay, so that's 2 of them. What about the other guy, Livingston? How'd they connect him?
Well, remember how the article mentioned those car break-ins that happened around the same time? Turns out a gun was stolen during one of those. Over a month later, that same stolen gun turns up in a vehicle that Kearney was a passenger in.
No way. So that ties them all together.
Exactly. And here's the thing. It wasn't just the hard evidence. Witnesses played a role, too. They gave a description of one of the suspects as being really tall, over 6 feet, and wearing bright red sweatpants.
Red sweatpants. Seriously. Talk about sticking out like a sore thumb.
Right. That description, along with his height, led them straight to Dwayne R. Livingston. Sometimes it's the little things, you know.
Crazy. But it makes sense. People remember what they see, especially if it's something unusual.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's social media. Investigators dug into their online activity. Turns out Kearney and Harris were all over each other's profiles.
Social media, gotta love it. Or hate it, depending on the situation.
For sure. But it's a goldmine for investigators these days. Helps build those connections, timelines, all of that.
So they used a bit of everything, huh? Old school detective work, new technology, witness accounts. It all added up.
And it was enough to get that guilty verdict on all charges for all 3 suspects.
Guilty on all charges. Sounds pretty cut and dry when you hear it like that, but what does it actually mean for these guys? What are we talking about here?
Well, yeah, legal jargon, not exactly clear sometimes, is it? Let's see, the article lists the convictions as rape, aggravated sodomy, and armed robbery for all 3 of them.
Okay, so, rape, that one's pretty clear, unfortunately, but aggravated sodomy, that's not something you hear every day. What makes it aggravated?
Right, so it's basically a more serious form of sodomy, often involves a weapon or like serious injury to the victim, adds another layer to the brutality, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. And then on top of that, armed robbery, they really were out to do some damage that night.
It seems that way. And there's more. The article, it mentions that Kearney, he got hit with an extra charge, Possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Has a whole other level of serious to the sentencing. Shows a disregard for the law. Ups the danger factor.
So with that guilty verdict in, what happens now? What are they facing?
Well, the judge has to decide the sentencing, right. But given the charges, we're talking serious prison time here, no question.
Yeah, this wasn't exactly a slap on the wrist kind of case.
Not at all. And, the district attorney, Patsy Austin Gasson, she made a pretty strong statement about it.
Oh, yeah. What was it again?
Let me see. I've got it right here. This is a despicable crime that absolutely could not go unchecked. The trauma these defendants inflicted on the victims is unimaginable, and these three men deserve to be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
Wow. Powerful stuff.
Definitely. She's not letting anyone off easy, that's for sure.
And, it's easy to get lost in the details, right? The evidence, the legal stuff, all that. But at the end of the day, this is about those two victims. They went through hell that night.
It's true. And that kind of trauma, it stays with you. This whole case, it reminds us that crime, it can happen anywhere, to anyone. It's a community issue.
It really makes you think about safety in your own life, Could this happen to me?
Right.
What can we do to protect ourselves, protect our communities? No easy answers, but it's a conversation we got to have.
Absolutely. Tough conversation, but a necessary one.
Well said. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into this disturbing case out of Gwinnett County. Stay safe out there, everyone, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.